Hey everyone, welcome back to Therapist Uncorked. I'm your host, Carly, a therapist who has way too many thoughts and not nearly enough time. As always, anything discussed in this podcast is not formal therapy. We're strictly here for informational and entertainment purposes only. If you are struggling with your mental health, I encourage you to contact a local mental health provider, your local emergency services, or you can even text or call the 988 helpline for immediate crisis assistance. In today's episode, we'll talk all things dopamine, specifically related to ADHD. This is something I'm super passionate about, both personally and professionally, so I'm really excited to share. Learning more about ADHD has been honestly life-changing for me, because I finally learned that all the things I've been shaming myself for my entire fucking life aren't my fucking fault. I hope this is able to give you the same feeling and help you learn and understand some of the inner workings of the ADHD brain. Let's dive in. So let's talk dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter and it's a hormone in our brain that pretty much is essential for our brain reward, motivation, pleasure, motor control, and cognitive focus. So essentially, it's the feel-good chemical. It's when you have a shot of tequila, that's the first thing that goes to your brain. Oh my God, this is so fun, right? Or it's, when we go shopping and we find a really cute shirt and we go buy it. Okay, that's a quick hit of dopamine. So it's basically just the thing that tells your brain, hey, you're going to feel really good if you do XYZ. Cool, right? Love that for us. But the thing with the ADHD brain is we do not get dopamine in the same way that a neurotypical brain does. So what I mean by that is an example I like to use that's kind of silly, but I think it kind of gets the point across, is there's the pregame and the party, right? So the pregame is when you're getting ready to go out with friends. Maybe you're at your house, you're having a couple drinks while you're getting ready, right? So you're getting kind of that dopamine hit ahead of time. So the pregame. Then we go to the party, right? And then we get more dopamine because we're hanging out with people, we're, drinking more, whatever it is. Wow, I'm really talking about drinking a lot. Don't mind me. So there's the pregame dopamine, and then there's the actual dopamine after doing something. So that is the way that a neurotypical brain gets dopamine. You get it before, then you do the task, and then you get it after. So you get the pregame and the party. ADHD brain, we don't get that. We don't get the pregame, we just get the party. So cool, we do get the dopamine, but it's not the same way that a neurotypical person gets it. So oftentimes you'll hear people with ADHD talking about, oh my God, I can't start doing this. I can't do this task. It feels like so much work, right? And other people might be like, just fucking do it. What do you mean? Just go do the task. But for us, our brain doesn't tell us, hey, you're going to feel really good if you go do this, because we don't get that dopamine ahead of time. Our brain doesn't know that you're going to feel good. Maybe like in our cognitive part of our brain, our thinking brain, we're like, oh yeah, it'll feel great if I go take out the trash. But the dopamine in our brain is like, nah, let's not. So from the outside looking in, for a lot of people, they might be looking at the ADHD brain saying, what the fuck? These motherfuckers are lazy. They've got no motivation. All they do is sit around all day. They don't want to do anything. Which totally, I can 100% see how it would look that way. I've looked at people that way before I understood why. I absolutely fucking looked at people that way. And I know every single one of you have too. Do not lie. Which, again, totally understandable. So that is something that I've become really passionate about explaining to people, though, for this exact reason. Because my whole life, I did well in school. I even, back to elementary school, my whole entire college career, high school career, all of that, I did well in school. So I never really realized, holy shit, all these other things I'm experiencing could actually be ADHD. I thought I was just lazy, unmotivated, all those words that I was just explaining, because I did well in school. So that means I don't have ADHD, right? And I'm not blaming my parents, none of that. It's just societally, we all looked at ADHD differently. If you're not a 7-year-old boy in fucking kindergarten running around and can't sit still, you don't have ADHD, right? So I'm so thankful that, a lot more information about ADHD and just neurodivergence in general has been coming out, because it helps us to learn, it helps us to understand, and it helps us to see why the fuck we are the way that we are. We know more about why our brains look, feel, act the way that they do. So it really helps to reduce that shame. Doesn't make it go away, but it does help to understand it's not me. My brain just works differently. There's a book that I love, and I reference it all the time, both in my personal life and with clients, probably multiple times a week. I'm actually obsessed, and I'll link it in the show notes below. It's called How to ADHD. Basically what it is it's someone, I believe female, I want to say, so I'll use she, her pronouns. So this person, she wrote a book. It's called How to ADHD. Best book ever, seriously. I'm telling you, changed my fucking life, honestly. Like, you need to read it. She also has a YouTube channel that I think is under the same name, How to ADHD. And I think that's actually where it started. And then she changed, or then she kind of shifted and started a book, whatever. Nonetheless, the book How to ADHD is fucking amazing. Okay, 12 out of 10. I should honestly get like royalties for how much I talk about it, because I'm obsessed. But the reason I really like it is this woman is explaining her experience with ADHD, and in the book she shares so much knowledge, so much research, and then she also shares kind of tips and tricks of how to navigate all of it. And her kind of tagline, if you will, in her book, it says something along the lines of, don't try harder, just try differently, because your brain, what does it say? You know what? I'm gonna go get my book. Hang on. I should have played like the Jeopardy theme song or something. Okay, so the tagline here, or tagline isn't the right word. What would I use? Whatever, it doesn't really matter. It says, forget try harder. When your brain works differently, you need to try different. And I absolutely fucking love that, because listen, the ADHD brain doesn't get dopamine the same way that the neurotypical brain does. So it makes things feel harder for us. Makes sense. So rather than trying harder, just try differently. So that's something that I really, really, really hammer in with so many of my clients. I have to tell myself, even my husband, basically any fucking person with ADHD that will fucking listen to me. I tell them, you don't have to try harder. You just have to try differently. And I really like to explain the kind of science, the dopamine behind it, because it helps take away that shame and that stigma there. So there's my TED Talk about dopamine. Super interesting, but I don't know. I think it's something that's really important for us to know. Also, a little fun fact, maybe not so fun, I don't fucking know. Up to 21% of people with substance use disorder have ADHD, which may be due to the dopamine hit that humans get when we use a substance. ADHDers don't get as much dopamine as neurotypical people, so there might be a link here. I am going to link an article. Wow, that was hard for me. An article in the show notes that kind of talks about this. So if you like to nerd out over these things and would like to read this study that was done, super interesting if you're a nerd like me. So I'll link that in the show notes too for you to check out if you're interested. So like I said, a lot of times people with ADHD will hear things like, oh, just start, just rip the Band-Aid off, start the task, you'll feel so much better, which totally, yes, you will feel better when you do the thing, but our brains don't work that way. An example I like to use that really, really hits home for me is getting gas in my car. Okay. I fucking hate getting gas. I cannot tell you how much I fucking hate getting gas. I don't know why. There's literally no reason. It takes 2 minutes. It's super fucking easy. You can pay at the pump. Like, it's not that deep, right? But my brain cannot function when it comes to getting gas. Like, I avoid it at every fucking cost. I will literally drive until like my gas light is on, and then I'll push it until I only have like 10 miles left on my tank before I go get gas, because I just I can't. And there's no logical explanation for it. It makes no fucking sense. I just can't do it. And the reasoning behind this is maybe I'm just weird, which, I mean, yeah. Or maybe this is where that dopamine comes into effect here, right? I don't get that dopamine ahead of getting the gas, like that pre-game, like I was talking about, because my neurodivergent brain only gets the dopamine when it's done. So after I get gas, I feel fucking great. And not gonna lie, I make myself feel bad about it every goddamn time I go and get gas. Because I sit there and I'm like, this took 2 minutes. Okay, maybe like 5 minutes. Still, very minimal amount of time. There's a gas station on my way home from work. It's like half a mile from my house. Literally doesn't add any extra time to my route at all. Could not be easier. But I can't do it. So I sit there and I make myself feel bad about it. So I have to actively remind myself, hey, you're not being lazy. You're not being stupid. You're just being an ADHD girly. And this is just a struggle. And it's okay. There's a lot worse things I do as a human. There's a lot better things I do as a human. Okay, that made me sound like a really bad person. I don't know, whatever. If the worst thing I do is push my car a little longer until I get gas, it's not that fucking deep. So that's also something I need to remind myself of is you can chill the fuck out. It's not that serious. If you wait till the last minute to get gas, okay, no one's gonna die. Nothing's gonna happen. It's fine. So in that same vein, something I think is important to talk about is executive function. So this is a term that I've noticed has gotten a little bit more popular lately, and I'm so happy about that because executive function, or for a lot of ADHDers, executive dysfunction, plays right into that dopamine and that kind of motivation center of our brain. So to be a little nerdy, the definition for executive function is a set of top-down cognitive processes that help us self-regulate so we can effectively plan, prioritize, and sustain effort for long-term goals. I feel like I need to take a deep breath after that. I didn't fucking breathe that whole time. Probably really haven't breathed for this whole podcast, but it's fine. It's the ADHD excitement, okay? So basically, executive function is what makes our brain go, okay? It helps us to do the things so that we feel better, so it plays right into dopamine. However, those with ADHD, we typically develop our executive function up to 30% slower than a neurotypical person. So what that means is an example that they use in the How to ADHD book. You could be sending a kid off to college at the age of 18, right? And you would expect their brain to work like an 18-year-old's, which realistically isn't that great because I don't know about you, but when I was 18, I was a little crazy, all right? So 18-year-old brain, maybe not the best. However, if you're sending a college-age kid, 18 years old, off to college, you expect them to have the cognitive functioning of an 18-year-old. However, if they have ADHD, they can actually be delayed by 30%. So you're sending about a 12, 13-year-old to college, which can be kind of scary, both for parents, caregivers, whoever, and the person going to college or whatever, if they're going to work or whatever it is. What I'm getting at is our brains in that area, our executive function develops more slowly. So it makes sense that we struggle with things a little bit longer or a little bit more than people that have that executive function that was developed on a normal pace. So our brains just don't work that way. Basically, what that means is the ADHD brain tends to struggle more with things like impulsivity, being impulsive, memory, and transitions, in addition to a ton of other things, but those three really stick out. So impulsivity, pretty obvious, a lot of people with ADHD, we struggle with this. And that's one that from the outside looking in, you can kind of tell, Impulsivity can be something like spending too much money. It can be taking, risky behaviors. It can be sex. It can be whatever it is. We tend to be more on the impulsive side. Memory is another one that I've recently learned a lot about, and I was actually talking to my mom about this recently, and she's kind of struggled with memory here and there, and she's always like, oh my god, am I, losing my mind? And I mean, honestly, I used to make fun of her for this shit, because I'm like, dude, you don't fucking remember anything. How do you not remember these things? And my mom, she's had a best friend for longer than I've been alive, and her friend knows more about my mom's life than my mom knows, because her friend is neurotypical, so has a better executive function in her brain, so her brain can remember more than my mom, who can't remember as many things. So this is going to age me a little bit, so if you're younger, don't make fun of me for this, but when I was growing up, I had, and I promise this relates to memory, when I was growing up, we had one of those, like, I call them like a CD tower. It's basically just like a tall stand with like all the little slots for CDs, or I know like people used to have them for like DVDs, as like we got a little more modern, but essentially those like CD towers, right? So I'm hoping you can picture this. If not, pause and Google, and don't make fun of me because I feel kind of old right now. But picture a neurotypical person, so someone without ADHD or autism. Picture a really tall CD tower. They can fit fucking 50 CDs. Okay, let's say 50 CDs. That's how many memories they can fit in there. Okay, maybe bigger than 50. Let's say 500, okay? They can fit 500 CDs or 500 memories in their memory bank in their brain. So that's a neurotypical person. A neurodivergent person, we have a way smaller CD tower. I don't know exactly the numbers, so don't quote me on it, but let's say that we have maybe 250, 300 CD or memory slots in there. Again, I don't know the numbers, but what I'm getting at is we have a significantly smaller capacity for memories, so it makes sense that we forget a lot of things. I can tell you the fucking gift that my 5th grade boyfriend got me, and that's something that is like stuck in my brain, but I could not fucking tell you what I had for dinner yesterday. Like, actually, that's a lie. We had this like mushroom risotto, and it was a frozen one, so I was a little like, is it gonna be good? Holy fuck, it was so good. I think it was called Better Goods, it was Better Goods. It was like a mushroom and Asiago risotto. Have to buy it. It's so fucking good. Anyway, so I can remember some of the most useless fucking shit, but I can't remember actually important things. And it can be really, really frustrating, both for me and for the people around me. So that's another time I have to remind myself, like, hey, it's not you. It's not a character deficit, like, it's your brain. Your brain just works differently. So if I need to work on my memory by writing things down, by setting alarms, whatever it is, cool. This is not like I said, it's not a character deficit. My brain just works differently. So it's my responsibility to put systems in place to help myself remember, to help those around me remember, all those types of things, because it can get really easy to make yourself feel like fucking shit when it's not you. And again, back to the book, How to ADHD. You don't need to try harder. You just need to try differently. I can sit here and make myself feel bad. Like, oh my God, why can't I just fucking remember? I just need to try harder. No, I don't. I don't need to try harder. I just need to put different systems in place, because even if I try harder, it's probably not going to fucking work, because my brain just doesn't work that way. So that's something that I think is really important too, because I've noticed that, especially in women with ADHD, we shame ourselves. You know what? Men too. I shouldn't say, in this context, I think men and women probably experience it equally. So I take that back. But, those with ADHD, we make ourselves feel so bad all the time about our habits, about our personalities, all of that. Fuck that shit. Okay, fuck that. Our brains are not the same. So why the fuck are we expecting them to be? It's not your job to fix these things. It's not your job to make these things go away. It's your job to work with your brain rather than against it. So there's my TED Talk on ADHD, on ADHD, executive function, executive dysfunction, and motivation and dopamine. I really hope this was helpful. I hope it helps to take some of the shame and stigma away. All right, love you, bye.